In Louisiana, values matter, land matters, friendships matter, and at Hibernia, service matters. As a proud sponsor of public television in the communities we serve, Hibernia is pleased to support Louisiana, the state we're in. Hibernia, where service matters. Production funding is also provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation of Jennings. The Ziegler Museum features a unique collection of European and American art and wildlife dioramas. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, welcoming you in 1999 to Franco Fete, a year-long statewide birthday celebration of Louisiana's tricentennial.
Marking 23 years of in-depth journalism, this is LPB's statewide news magazine. From the capital, it's Louisiana, the state we're in. For Friday, September 10th, I'm Jeff Dewey. This is the first program of the 23rd season of Louisiana, the state we're in. And in tonight's table of contents, we find a quality of life story on the world's largest assemblage of French family reunions, this summer's Congrès Mondial. Plus, in our Louisiana history moment, it's Jimmy Davis's 100th birthday. These stories later in the program. First, our weekly roundup of state headlines. Mike Foster has a surprise GOP rival in the race for governor. It's State Senator Tom Green of Maringouin, the conservative anti-gambling chairman of the Senate Education Committee.
We've got the accountability program. All that's going to do is reveal the education crisis we've been in for a long while. The accountability right now is still to the same system it was supposed to be accountable to all along. So I don't really think change is going to happen, nor will it happen quick enough.
Green's announcement increases, if just a bit, the possibility Foster will face a runoff after the October 23rd primary. Those most easily recognizable candidates say Foster is more vulnerable than pollsters might think when they peg his approval rating at better than 3/4.
Well, that's what his people say. That's what Bernie Pincinat said. He works for the guy, so you credit that if you want to. That's not what we show. But in any event, we know that we have a race against an incumbent governor. Heck, we know that when we walked in the door. But we also know we have a strategy to deal with it. And the strategy is to get our message out over television, in person, over the airwaves, at a time when people are going to pay attention to it, which is right about now. And we'll fight this thing real hard. This race will be very, very tight before too long. And then you guys will have the race that you're kind of looking for out here.
It is an absolute joke when you look at we have the slowest growth rate in the South. We rank dead last in the kids count, and people are saying that Louisiana's doing fine. It's kind of like the quicksand's up over your head, and now it's down to your chin, and they're asking, can we do better?
I'm not running against anybody. I'm running for the office. I'm going to run on what I've done, what I believe in. If people want me, fine. But if they don't, that's fine, too. You know, for me, it's not the end of the world. Some people, politics is what they wake up for every morning.
I wonder how annoyed you'll be if the race does become really divisive and perhaps racist.
I hope not. I really hope that candidates don't try to divide races in this campaign. I am not, and I got to tell you that I just hope that doesn't happen. It would not be good for the state.
From the tone of the challenger, it seems the lieutenant governor's race may be hotter than anticipated.
We're going to give them a clear choice between policies and politics of old and new vision, new ideas, and new energy. I'm bringing a business background, not a political background, to the office of lieutenant governor. In Louisiana, the lieutenant governor's chief responsibility is tourism and promoting the state of Louisiana. We've learned to do that as a businessman, and we look forward to bringing that approach to the state and using that approach to benefit the state, across the state, not just in certain sectors of the economy or certain areas of the state.
We think that we can continue to energize Louisiana's economy through tourism. We want to continue building jobs. We've managed to increase the job capacity in tourism from 100,000 to 112,000 just over the last 3 years.
Both Attorney General Richard Ayub and Agriculture Commissioner Bob Odom are back in. No one signed up to challenge them. The boycott of a St. James Parish school is over. After more than 3 weeks of protest over the transfer of an administrator, student enrollment has returned to 95% of normal in Lutcher. Louisiana was labeled this week a job seeker's paradise. A survey finished in mid-July turned up 75,000 jobs. Unfilled truck drivers and carpenters topped the most wanted list. Last month, Elections Commissioner Jerry Fowler was indicted for theft following a legislative auditor's report detailing fattened contracts to maintain voting machines. Now 2 Florida men have pled guilty to conspiracy charges associated with paying Fowler more than $1 million from their voting machine company.
They were paying for the parts to go in the machines and having them reconditioned and spending up to $4,300 on reconditioned machines. They could have bought the same machine for less than $1,500.
They've had this investigation for 3.5 years, and now 2 weeks before qualifying and 2 months before the election, the indictment comes down. I think it reaps the politics.
Time being at a premium this week, we'll continue our exclusive interview with Jerry Fowler and talk with his election challengers next week on Louisiana, the state we're in. 1999 is the year tourism officials dubbed Franco Fete because it's the tricentennial of French influence in Louisiana. To South Louisiana, especially, family reunions have attracted thousands of French descendants. LPB correspondent Diana Baker has tonight's Quality of Life report.
Last month, 1,500 Acadian descendants from around the world journeyed to Louisiana to find their long-lost cousins. Louisiana's Cajuns are some of the descendants of thousands of refugees from England's Grand Deportment of Canada that began in 1755. They came by car, bus, and even motorcycle. They came from around the world, but mostly from Canada.
Yeah, it was a very fun and long trip, but it was worthwhile to be back in Acadia again. Visit all my Cajun cousins.
These Canadians have been on the road from Ontario for days.
So you're here to visit your relatives?
Yeah, there was another location. We just came back from there, find out some bros from Texas and you name it, and all over the world. Some people from France yesterday.
For 3 weeks in August, these families of French descent, the Broussards, Comos, Landrys, Bros, and others, gathered at the Congrès Mondial Acadien Louisiane, or in English, the Louisiana World Congress of Acadians. They came to remember what had torn them apart. It's written on tablets of stone in graveyards and played out in frozen images of unwavering love. And they came to celebrate the ties that still bind them together: religion, language, music, and more than anything else, family. On this day, they are retracing the steps of the first Acadians to land in Louisiana. More than 200 years ago, many of the first Acadian exiles stepped onto this piece of land in St. James Parish. From that point on, theirs would be a world apart. In this mosquito-infested, hellishly hot place of death, they would build a life. It would be a life of self-imposed isolation from the outside world, a world that had only hurt them. Today, as the rest of the world preaches self-involvement and independence, these insular families remain unashamed of their deep need for God and each other. As part of the Congress, each family held a reunion. Each was basically the same, usually beginning with a mass, then on to days filled with family pride.
I'm a phone agent, but my wife's the co-chairman of this organization.
It all began with the statue standing right here behind you. A bro by the name of Furman Bro came to Bro Bridge and decided to build a bridge across the Bayou Teche.
This is the Bro family reunion.
He had a granddaughter named Scholastique Pico Bro. The Bro family has always meant a great deal to Bro Bridge, and you being a member of that Bro family, you can leave Bro Bridge, and wherever you go, you can say you're part of Bro Bridge. It's a very unique community. We do not have many riches, but we're very rich in culture. and very rich from the heart.
The reason why we came down was just to find out what happened to these Acadians when they moved down here. How hard it was for them to come so far, because we came down with a car, and it was quite a trip, just driving. Now, these people moving by boat and whatever, it must have been awful hard. And we also wanted to see like the difference, how these Acadians turn out down here compared to us. But by the look of it there, it seems there's not that much difference. People are happy, friendly, and they like fun. The reason why there was some bro that was left behind is because some bros deserted Port Royal, and they were hiding in the woods all along New Brunswick. And finally, they settled up in a place which is called now Burn Church.
When I first went to Acadia, I cried, because there wasn't only me. When I came through the Canadian Park and they showed what our ancestors had when we left, a few cows, a few goats, it made me want to cry.
This 92-year-old grandmother was born in New Brunswick. She heads up this group of bros from Canada, Michigan, and California. They say the genealogical research and finding family they didn't know they had made the long journey worthwhile.
No, I didn't know we were Acadian when I was growing up. I had no idea. But they talked about Evangeline, and I didn't know why.
We have been able to keep our ways because we're so close. We're very family orientated, and the people have kept this alive with their religion, their language, and being together as a community.
As I get older, I'm really disappointed that I didn't maintain the language. I can speak it if I have to, but it's amazing how your youth and what you learn when you're young, like Agnes, I feel a lot of, I'm very happy I'm here.
We can't separate these people. It's that bond, the bond of our people, right, John? And my husband knows that too. I've gone everywhere to look for this because I want to know my people, what happened to them? And when I come here, I don't care if they're in rags or we're in rags. It's my people. That's how I feel about it. I can't help it.
We say, are you a bro? Yes, I'm a bro. Where are you from? And you know, you just feel it, that it's in you, you know. We were separated, and I think it was cruel in a way, you know. They suffered.
The Acadian World Reunion was an event of historic importance, played out in communities across South Louisiana. More than 3,000 volunteers helped make the event a reality. But it was more than just a genealogy craze. Academic conferences, business meetings, and mini festivals added to the dozens of festivities staged by more than 80 families. The reunion activities are a follow-up to a massive gathering of French Acadians that happened in New Brunswick in 1994.
Very impressive to see all these Acadians from Louisiana to come to our first Congrès Mondial in Shediac in New Brunswick 4 years ago. We were surprised. I mean, these people had brought food. They prepare special food for us one night down there. That's the first time I ate some crocodile meat, and we had parties. They were playing music for us, and that's why we want to return the whatever they did for us there.
For most of the nearly 200 daytime events, temperatures in the high 90s tested the crowds. But at night, this is the Cajun Pier in Lafayette, near the end of the celebration. By this time, bands from Canada and Louisiana are performing well together.
Yesterday I was working out at the health club, and I had brought my Cajun music tape with me to wear while I worked out. And I was listening to the Cajun music, and I just felt so struck by it, and I realized that this festival was going on this weekend and that I really needed to be here. And I went home after listening to that tape and that music and talked to my husband and said, you know, I really want to be there and experience this. I feel like it's a call to all Cajuns to come home and celebrate being Cajun.
The Congress is the actual written record of the family pedigrees. Ancestry is central to the customs passed down, but it's not only the family names that are the same. These Canadian teenagers are both from Church Point, but in different countries.
Where are you from?
I'm from Church Point, Nova Scotia. Bissett, Marie. Yes.
And where are you from?
Church Point, Louisiana.
Church Point, Louisiana?
Right.
You're both 16.
Yes.
Are you cousins?
I think so.
Not that I know of.
What do you think about the girls of Louisiana?
Oh, they're okay. Oh yeah, they're
90% of the Acadian people sent to France from Canada came to Louisiana as a community. Even though they are of French descent, they don't consider themselves French. They had all held on to the American dream, and they're still proud to be Americans. This is the Honorable Don Boudreau, Canadian Minister of State, Member of Parliament, and leader of the Canadian House of Commons. Why have people come so far from Canada? Why do you think they will continue to do this?
Because they're long-lost cousins. You have to remember that the origin of the deportation, le grand dérangement, the great disturbance, if it can be translated, was the people who were forced to leave the area around Grand Pré and other areas of Nova Scotia, and they've left there for Prince Edward Island, for New Brunswick, for Newfoundland, and some of them for the southern coast of the United States, and many, many went right back across the ocean and did a return trip to end up here in Louisiana. And they're cousins, long lost maybe. They bear the same names. The music resembles. The language is the same, and the accent is even similar. It's remarkable that after 245 years, essentially, so much is still similar.
So you grew up in an area that was primarily an English-speaking area, and you grew up as a minority. Does that make it even that much more important to you to maintain the language?
Well,
for your children and grandchildren?
It gives kind of an affinity. The fact that I was raised in a minority situation in my own province, which is the equivalent of a state, roughly, in Canada, means that I have a bit of an appreciation of what it's like. There are differences because, of course, French-speaking people in Canada form about 25% of the population, and those who speak French overall in the country are between 40 and 45% of the people overall. So the ratio isn't quite the same. But just the same, it gives me a bit of a feeling for what you have. And again, I go back to Zachary Richard, one of your poets and very great musicians, which we Canadians like. It's your heritage and the words he used that you know, you have to keep the heritage and the language of your grandmother, I think is a good way of describing it. I think it says it all.
Ronald Bourgeois is coordinator of the Nova Scotia delegation.
Tell me, what has this accomplished this year?
Well, I think that, like 1994 was the original Congrès Mondial. That was an amazing feat, because that was where really the doors were open and the links were made. I mean, they started from nothing. This year, it's solidified the groupings in Louisiana. So the families now all have associations. So now the door's wide open. Now we've got family associations in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, Atlantic Canada, and now we've got it here, we've got it in Quebec. So I was trying to explain to someone today, it's like two twin brothers that are separated at birth and that meet 60 years later. And this is what's happening is, I mean, we've got a lot of time to make up. We've got 250 years to make up now.
Miles cannot separate us. We can't forget what happened to us, and we feel part of the people of Louisiana. So every time we look at a person, a Cajun, or a people of our ancestry, we found a family, even though we've never met them. They're still our people, and we can never be separated.
The story of these Acadian families remains timeless, much like the story of Evangeline. It's an epic poem that twists, turns, divides, but is never conquered. With every birth, the tale begins anew.
C'est le papa de mon grand-papa. Voilà. Et puis ça, c'est la grand-mère.
As French tricentennial events continue all year, we look ahead now to some entertaining events across the state this week. Jeanerette marks the weekend with an old country fair. An outdoor performance of the Shreveport Metropolitan Ballet is Saturday night at Riverfront Park. The Louisiana Folklife Festival is in Monroe again for the 6th year, Saturday and Sunday, and for its centennial, Erath has town artifacts on display through the end of the month. Now, speaking of centennials, country music star and former governor Jimmy Davis is 100 years old on the 11th tomorrow. Each week on this program, we look back at Louisiana history, and tonight, choose the singing governor as our historic highlight. A member of both the Country Music and Gospel Music Halls of Fame, the two-term governor had the humblest of beginnings. Beach Springs, Louisiana, at the turn of the century was as country as it got. Jimmy Davis worked the fields of cotton and attended school when chores allowed.
Well, I thought we were supposed to be dirt poor, sometimes hungry.
Though it was rare for his time and background, he enrolled at Louisiana College in Pineville and paid for some of his education by strumming a guitar on street corners in Alexandria. By 1927, he had saved enough to head to LSU, where he earned a master's degree in psychology. Back home, he started writing and singing songs for KWKH radio.
After he finished, he taught at a girls' school, Dodd College, and it was a Baptist college for girls in Shreveport. And they had a very powerful radio station there, KWKH. It was what they call a 50,000-watt station. I believe you could hear it all over the world. And some of his songs got a little risque, so Dr. Dodd called him in, the minister, and told him, said, now, if you don't stop this on the radio, said, you're going to have to look for another job. So he looked for another job and got a job as clerk to the one of the judges in Shreveport and Caddo Parish.
His musical talent helped propel him from Shreveport legal clerk to public service commissioner to governor. Riding post-war prosperity, he sought to reform the way business was done in Baton Rouge. The state was blessed with revenues, and Davis left a surplus each time he left office.
Whenever you go any place, and it's amazing how many people have raised or reared their children to that song, You're My Sunshine. Chris Fazer and I took him to T.J. Ribs about 3 years ago. He loves to eat ribs. And we got there, and I looked over, and there was a young man that was a former athlete at LSU. He came over and he said, Donald Ray, he said, is that Governor Jimmy Davis? And I said, yeah. He said, would you mind introducing him to me? He said, I have something I want to tell him. And I said, okay. So he goes over to Governor Davis, and he said, now, whether you can believe this or not, he said, I have 4 children, and the oldest child is 8 years of age. He said, the first night that we bring those kids, the first night we brought those kids home from the hospital, said we would rock them to sleep to You Are My Sunshine. He said, every one of my kids grew up on You Are My Sunshine. He said that was the way we put our kids to sleep in a rocking chair. Now, I have talked to, I'd say, 8 or 10 people over the last 2 to 3 years that have told me that same story, that at night when we get ready to go to bed, I mean, that puts them to sleep.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray.
In the 40s, I was traveling with a friend of mine, and we were above the Arctic Circle in Lapland in Norway. And we decided that we would just go up to school and ask if we could come visit a classroom. And when we opened the door to the classroom, Now, this is a spur-of-the-moment thing. I nearly dropped my teeth because they were singing "You Are My Sunshine" in English. And I knew right then that Jimmy Davis was going to be an international, world-class person.
We'll bring a house bill to the code of ethics not far behind.
The 1960s were a time of racial tension, but Jimmy Davis's calm nature contributed to Louisiana's peaceful contrast with the states around us. In his second term, from 1960 to 1964, he launched another large public works program.
He did some great things for the state of Louisiana. He's the only governor in my lifetime. He served 2 terms, did not pass a new tax either time he was governor, and the only one that left a substantial surplus in the treasury each time he left office.
But we may always hold as most memorable his enduring musical legacy. In Baton Rouge, a fundraiser is underway tonight to celebrate Davis's life and benefit the Jimmy Davis Tabernacle in Jackson Parish. That's our program for this evening. Now a look ahead at one of the stories we're working on for next week. They were here before the Cajuns, even before the Spanish, before most of us were here. The peculiar struggles and triumphs of native Louisianans is a mostly untold story. Yet there's a mound of information in some unique and rarely seen images from a new and valuable art exhibit. Romance and Reality, American Indians in Our State History. Next week on Louisiana, the state we're in. Plus, Elections Commissioner Jerry Fowler faces challengers and allegations he squandered millions of dollars. An exclusive LPB interview on our program next week. And correspondent Diana Baker witnesses daring Coast Guard rescues in the Gulf of Mexico as this hurricane season continues. Until next week, that's the state we're in.
We'd like to hear from you. Write Louisiana, the state we're in, 7733 Perkins Road in Baton Rouge. Or call LPB toll-free. We're on the internet at this address. In Louisiana, values matter, land matters, friendships matter, and at Hibernia, service matters. As a proud sponsor of public television in the communities we serve, Hibernia is pleased to support Louisiana, the state we're in. Hibernia, where service matters. Production funding is also provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation of Jennings. The Ziegler Museum features a unique collection of European and American art and wildlife dioramas. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism, welcoming you in 1999 to Franco Fete, a year-long statewide birthday celebration of Louisiana's tricentennial.